let me go ahead and record. All right, thank you all for joining in for the second day. This is our email specialist virtual boot camp, the 9-day sessions that we have. Go ahead. Can you all hear me okay, by the way? Sound is all good?
Yes, yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you. It's a little about myself. I am actually the leader for the B2C group here in Melbourne. Years of experience with Salesforce. I moved to Marketing Cloud recently, and I've actually I've been looking at it for the last few years, but then seriously started looking into Marketing Cloud over the last year or so, and I had a good fascination towards it. I'm also being selected as one of the marketing champions this year. I also have Isha. She's also one of our marketing champions, and we do have a few more marketing champions who will be actually joining in for a couple of other sessions later during this boot camp. Okay. So without further ado, so our Bilda gave a very good introduction into email marketing yesterday. I hope that was very insightful. So most of the time we actually look at it from an IT perspective, or how we support the business team, but then you get a true marketing perspective from a digital marketer's view. She gave you that view of how do we use the tool? What are the various terms and terminologies that we use the tool for, right? So hopefully that was very useful. And if you have missed that, please look at the recording. I've sent it to you. Or if you have not received it, please do ping me later, and I will forward that to your email. Okay? We will be recording these sessions, and then I'll upload that to the playlist. So hopefully you'll be able to follow along, if you miss a day or not. So today we will actually look at the actual tool, so I'll introduce you to the Salesforce Marketing Cloud tool, how it looks like, what are the various options available within that. And then we will deep dive into the data model, the actual data model, between in Marketing Cloud, how do you actually store data, what does it use for, all those things. And then we will go into the other sessions next week. Okay, so we have more sessions lined up. Okay, so introducing you to Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So primarily the Marketing Cloud, it contains of various tools within it called studios and builders. Okay, so let me show you what the Marketing Cloud dashboard looks like. So this is how it looks like. You log in on the dashboard. You see on the top, you will see a bunch of different options that you see. So these are actually classified as studios and builders. Okay, studios are nothing but various options where how you can actually interact with various different channels. Okay? If you want to market it out to various channels email, if you want to do mobile marketing, if you want to do on social Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those things you can do. Advertising, there's a lot of ads that you can actually do through Google. How about Facebook ads? So all those things you can actually do advertising. Web primarily is if you have your own custom web pages, or if you have a landing page that you want to create using cloud pages, you can use that and then integrate that into marketing as well. Okay. Interaction Studio is something that was actually used earlier to show you different various interactions of a particular customer or who you're actually marketing with, and how they've engaged with you. So you collect the data from that and then you decide how to use that. So from a particular customer can interact with you in different ways. So now recently they've actually Salesforce has bought Evergage, so that transition is in progress, so it's slowly coming in. So hopefully we'll get to see more and more details about Evergage in the near future. Builders primarily are cross channel, so there are tools that you within Marketing Cloud that you use across these different channels. So analytics is reports and analytics you can use. Journey Builder, this is all about automation, any automation processes that you want to do behind the scenes. We will deep dive into these tools the last part of the bootcamp. So there's Automation Studio, and then there's Journey Builders where you have customer engagement. You will take customers to specific journeys. Content Builder, definitely anything that you market out, you have content, right? So you probably need to prepare different types of content for email, mobile, social marketing, everything. So you can actually create content and you can actually share that across different channels, and you can use that so that there's the same type of branding, consistent themes, colors, etc. You can do all that. Audience Builder is very important. That this contact builder that you see here, that is the primary place where you actually manage your contact data. like everything to do with your contact, you actually manage that. Okay. So then there was, if you look at the previous, like some of the screenshots that you've seen in Marketing Cloud, you might have noticed personalization builder that is no longer there. Instead, they've actually moved it in time. So this is fairly new. So earlier we used to have email and web recommendations. That is probably like so when you actually go to websites, or if you get emails, sometimes you see like promotional recommendations based on what you have actually chosen in the past, or like something that you have browsed, right? So those are recommendations automatically based on your behavior. So right now they've included that into Einstein, where they use artificial intelligence to like decide and let you know automatically, like you can actually generate code which you can place in your emails or your website, and it will change for every subscriber, like, or every contact that you have. Like for every contact that you're actually like marketing it out to, you can actually customize, like, and they can see special personalized recommendations that they will get. Okay. Besides that, new things that have been added as well, like about Einstein. So there will be webinars available shortly. Like I think a few have been started. So if you do get a chance, please do go through this, because we won't have time to cover everything during this one. This bootcamp primarily will focus on Email Studio, Journey Builder, Automation Studio, a little bit about the Content Builder part, and if we do have time, I will specify a little bit about Contact Builder as we do the Journey Builder part. Okay? So that is in a nutshell of like the various studios and builders that we have on the top. Any app exchange tools that you can actually that is specifically for Marketing Cloud, you can actually install as well. Like, there is something called Deployment Manager, which is something that you can actually use to like migrate code from not all code, but at least like data extensions, journeys, those kind of things. If you want to like move from one business unit to the other, you can use that. Query Studio is something that we will probably look at when we look at query activities. Like you can actually run queries and see like what is the output of that. So there are multiple app exchange applications that you can install. All right, let me go back to my slide here. So then something that you need to know about the org structure. Okay, so and from an executive as well, you might need to like know like, okay, what is the different 10 types that we have for Marketing Cloud. The most common that you see Enterprise 1.0, there is core and there is agency. Okay, the Enterprise 2.0 and 1.0, primarily what it means is one tenant means one full org. Okay, so it's basically like if you have a Salesforce org for CRM, it's similar to that, like, right? So it's one big org, and within that you have like a parent account, like a parent and then you have other business units as a child of that. Like it's kind of like a hierarchy. You can have like business units again placed under hierarchy. Like you can have B and C under A. You can have another business unit D, which is a peer of like business unit A, and then you can have another subsets under that. No problem. But all of those we should actually like roll up into one parent account. That cannot change. Okay, you will have one main parent account at the very top. So in the tool, if you go, you will see it at the very top over here. So you will see here, like, okay, this is my parent account that I have, the INC one. And I've actually had like, one for India, one for Asia, and then I have like, the training one that I created here. So all these are different business units. Okay. The parent one at the top, like, if I go the INC one, and then something that you will notice is when I go to here, like on the right side, you will see something called MID, which is the membership ID. Like, that is a unique identifier for every business unit. It's different. Okay. Just because, you have a parent one unit will have the same idea. Remember, Gilda was saying yesterday, like, every business unit has its own IP address. You can have your own IP address and all that. So you can actually, you will always have a different MID for each of these. And when you want to like look at the state of like the status of that particular business unit, or if you want to like add specific features and you are raising a support ticket, you have to specify this. Sometimes it might be across all the organizations, then you have to specify all the MIDs, like when you're raising a case with partner support. But if it's like to a specific one that you are actually working with, and if you have an issue, then you can specify the MID for that particular business unit. Okay. So in enterprise 1.0, the only difference is like the parent account will be there at the top, and then the business units below it, you can have like on your behalf or lock and publish. So there is more restriction to the business units. So there is actually in enterprise 2.0, every business unit, even the parent and the child, everything looks the same. Like if I change this one to one of the other ones, if it looks exactly the same. It's just another instance of it, but all rolled up into like one parent organization. So it's, think of it as like 4 different marketing cloud instances, but all under the same hierarchy of the main one that I have, right? In terms of in enterprise 1.0, the enterprise one at the very top, you will have child business units, but then the permissions that are being given can be more restrictive. It's like you can only edit the content. Okay? They cannot send emails. Sometimes you can say like like a lock and publish, meaning like where you can actually lock specific content, or you can say, okay, you can create emails, you can send specific type of emails, etc. So you can actually make it more restrictive in that kind of things, like when you have enterprise 1.0. Okay, so many of the organizations that we have either will be having enterprise 2.0, and the new ones, like if you have 2.0, you can still restrict it on the 2.0 level by like giving the appropriate roles and permissions, which I will shortly show. So this is how like a sample like enterprise 2.0 account will look like. So the primary use cases for why you would want to have like multiple business units is like think of it like from a branding perspective, or maybe you're doing business from a geographical location, like you want to like segregate, right? Or you have multiple departments that are looking at different things, and you want to segregate, like one team is doing marketing and they don't want to share assets with a different unit, they want to keep it separate. So there are multiple cases where you want to have like different business units. It varies from company to company, like how they want to use it. So there is always a provision for you to have multiple business units with hierarchies in there. Marketing cloud roles, like is there is actually like system defined roles, so you should probably use this as well, like from an exam perspective, very important. The ones that you see here that is mentioned with the sys in the beginning, those are all system defined. So you will have administrator, content creator, data manager, etc., like those. You can also create custom roles. Okay, so what those mean is like you can actually go and say, I want to have a custom, and then what each role does is it actually has permissions within that. Like for instance, it's very granular. Like in Salesforce, you're aware of like how do you give permissions? You have roles for a role hierarchy thing, right? So here, and then you have permission sets and all that. In Marketing Cloud, is very simple. Like for every feature that you have in Marketing Cloud, you have like a permission that you can give. Like if you expand these, like you will see like multiple options within there where you can actually go and then you can set allow or like deny permissions for that. So on a role, if I create a custom role, or like if you go to any of these default roles, you will see that there are specific permissions. Like administrator, there are 2 administrator roles. Those 2, when you put together for a particular person, they probably would have almost everything available for them. But a content creator, like they might not have permissions to send email. They might have everything to do with like creating content, etc. Okay, so you will have to like check and see like what are the permissions available. So sometimes you might want to like give specific permissions to people in the marketing team who are only looking at content. They might be like creating, editing content. There might be people who might be like only responsible for sending out emails. They are not supposed to be editing content because you want that to be restricted to a specific team, right? So that's where you actually look at like how to create roles and then assign them to either users or to a business unit. So there is 2 ways you can assign roles. One is like you can assign it directly to a user. Okay, and if this is like if I'm assigning to a specific user, like the the role that I have, sorry, not user, to a role. Like here I have actually this particular custom one that I created called email specialist bootcamp user, right? So if I go into this one here, you will see like for the email specialist, that user, I've actually like these are the all different types of roles, sorry, permissions available. On the right side, you will see all the ones that are allowed. Like so if I expand all these, it will actually show you the check marks for those. And if there is something that is not allowed, and if I want to like deny it, then I can actually go and say like as a whole. So what happens is like, if you add people to that business unit, everybody like automatically inherits that particular permission, whatever you specified as part of that role. Okay. One thing that you need to know is like, if you give allow and deny,
Shivu, your audio is breaking.
sorry, I got dropped in between. Can you hear me now?
But it's breaking. We can hear
Hello.
you.
Okay, guess the connection is pretty bad. How about now?
Better.
Okay, I think there is an internet problem, so it keeps happening in between. Okay, let me know in between, like, just stop me in between if it's actually breaking pretty bad. Okay, let me confirm if it's recording. Yeah, it's recording, continuing. Okay, so can somebody confirm till how much do you hear? Do you hear about the various, how we can assign it to a business unit, the roles? Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, we have.
till here only. Two rows.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. All right. So what I was saying is like, you can actually specify permissions for a particular role, and then you can assign the role to a business unit as a whole, or to a user. So sometimes like, if you have a large number of users and then you don't want to like, go and specify for each user you want to give a specific role, you can assign it to a specific business unit as a whole, and then it's automatically. Okay. So that is also possible within Marketing Cloud. Okay. Okay, so then one other thing that I wanted to cover as part of the introduction about Marketing Cloud that you need to know is how do you, do a cross cloud integration. So many of you are probably familiar with Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, Community Cloud, and all that, right? So the CRM part of it, and Marketing Cloud is a totally different org. So how do you connect between the two? So there's something called Marketing Cloud Connect. It is available as an package that you can install. It's a managed package that you can install. You have to install it on the Sales Cloud or the Service Cloud instance. And then there is steps available in the help documentation that you have to follow. You'll have to like set up users on both sides, connected. Once you do that, it's like, you can send data from Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, like contacts, leads, and all that. You can bring it into Marketing Cloud and then use that for marketing purposes. Okay. So when I go through like data extensions later, I will show you some of the data extensions that is possible because of Marketing Cloud Connect. But just to let you know that that is how the connections is possible between the two. Okay. Okay. We'll move into subscriber and data management now. That is the data model. So let me go back to tool here. So a little bit about like the contact and subscriber. So in marketing, everything is about your customer, right? Yesterday, Gilda was talking about like, using your ES, which is in our case, which is Marketing Cloud. So end of the day, like, you are trying to like market to your customer. So as part of that, you need to like, go and understand who your customer is. You need to know who your customer is. Okay, you need to find out like, how they actually engage with your different channels. So I showed you the different channels that we have, like, either email, mobile, web, social, etc. And then once you like, understand like, how they engage with your channel, then like, you can actually go and figure out like, how do you do personalized communication or marketing out to them. Okay, so that is like that you actually follow if you are actually like, using Marketing Cloud to like, market out to them. Now, as part of that, like, you have like everything revolves around the central thing. The data revolves around your contact, or your customer. We call it contact in Marketing Cloud. So everything is like, around the contact, and there are different types of data that you will actually come across. Okay, so sample things would be like, demographic data about your contact. Okay, you can have like channel identifiers, like, how do you like, your mobile ID, your email ID, if you're using apps, then your device ID, etc. Right? Then your preferences, okay, what is your hobby, something that you prefer, what kind of newsletters that you prefer, or any subscriptions that you're actually, or do you want HTML emails only, etc. So all these things you can actually get. There's behavioral transactional data as well, okay, any purchases that they have made on your website. Okay, if you, let's say you're having an e-commerce website, so if they have done any transactions, you will be able to know that. Intelligence data, because right now there's a lot of artificial intelligence systems available, so they will actually use that to figure out okay, what is a recommendation that they will provide, that you can actually market out to the specific contact that you have, right? So there is different types of data points that you will come across, and then we need to know how do you map that into Marketing Cloud. So the main two data points or data structures that you will come across in Marketing Cloud, one is list, the other one is data extensions. So lists are primarily that you will be using within Email Studio, mostly and then data extensions also you will use in Email Studio, but it is most widely used across all the other channels in Marketing Cloud. Okay. So we will go through list today, and if time permits, we will start off data extensions and hopefully cover most of it by tomorrow. And then before I go into list or data extensions, let me try to explain to you what a subscriber and a contact is. Okay, so uh, any person that you actually associate with as part of your marketing strategy, that with your org, is a contact that you want to so a person who's actually maybe interacted with your website, okay, or with your social account, or maybe he's actually bought something from your commerce site, right? And then you want to market out to that person, becomes a contact. So the moment you actually bring that data
Shivu, you are
into Marketing
breaking.
Cloud with the purpose of marketing, it is a contact. It is actually a subset of a contact. Okay. 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 Now.
Yeah, better.
Okay. Cool. All right. So subscriber is a subset of a contact. Okay. Where actually it has primarily the people who are opted to receive your communication. Okay, so not all contacts might have actually opted to receive your communication. So you probably, they might be somebody who's actually interacted with your system, but they may not have come and said, okay, I wish to receive emails from you. The moment they actually say I've opted in, I want to receive communications from you, they will be termed as a subscriber. And the term subscriber is primarily used in Email Studio for email marketing. Okay, in all other channels you will use the term contact. Okay, so from an exam perspective, that is something you need to be very careful about, because they will sometimes ask you the difference between a subscriber or a contact, or at least you need to know the basics about that. So every subscriber is a contact, but not every contact is a subscriber. Okay, and subscriber should always explicitly have given you permission for you to market out to them. Okay? And then how do you identify a contact? In Marketing Cloud, once you get a contact in, you will have something like a unique identifier to identify this particular contact. Okay, and that is using something called contact key. Okay, it's like a primary key or like a unique key that you will use for this particular contact. And when in Email Studio, you will refer to that as a subscriber key. Okay, it's the same. The contact key and the subscriber key for a particular person is the same, but the term subscriber key is used whenever you're looking at Email Studio or email marketing. Okay, so don't get confused. Okay, we are talking about subscriber key, and in some other area it's showing as contact key. It's the same value for the same person across Marketing Cloud. Okay, and then you will actually have to choose as a strategy, you will have to figure out for your organization, what will be our unique identifier for our contact. Okay, you might be getting contacts from multiple sources. So one of the recommendations is, say if you're getting a contact from your CRM system, the recommendation is that you use the GUID, the 18 character, the CRM ID for a particular contact or a lead. You can use that as your contact key, because that is a unique identifier, right? Sometimes you might be actually getting a contact from another system, and they might be having a unique identifier that you can bring in, right? Some places, people will say, for your email, you want to store subscribers for your email, you want to use email address as your subscriber key. Now, the best recommendation is, or the best recommendation is not to use email address as a subscriber key, primarily because it varies from use case to use case. Like, if you're sure that email ID is always going to be a unique key for your subscribers, then it's okay. Like, for instance, if it's, you're talking to somebody, your customers are a part of an organization and everybody has a unique email ID, no problem. But assuming, let's say, your target audience is a household. Okay, so you can have a husband and a wife who are the same, who might be sharing a single email ID for their household, but they're two different subscribers. Okay, so you don't want to be storing them as a single subscriber using that email ID. Then you will not be able to send personalized marketing to both of them. So something that you might send to the husband may not be suitable what that you might want to send to the wife, right? So it's always preferable that you have each separate subscriber, and try not to use the email address as the unique subscriber key. Okay. And then once you have an identifier for the particular contact or the subscriber, then the next question is how do you actually reach out to them using marketing? How do you actually send messages to them? So if you're using Email Studio, then it actually looks for the email address. So that is something that along with the subscriber key, you need to store that in Email Studio. If you're using SMS messages, then you need it uses the Mobile Connect application in Mobile Studio, and that you will need to have a mobile number. Let's say you are having apps that you are actually going to send messages to, you have mobile push for that, so you can send in-app messages. For that you need the device ID. So there are different channel identifiers that you will have, and then you need to keep storing those data within Marketing Cloud if you need to send messages to them. Okay, so that is just a brief overview of contacts and subscribers, and I want to take you guys into the two main type data models that we have. One is the list and data extensions. So we'll first look at what is a subscriber list. Okay, so list. Okay, where is this show that? Yeah. Okay. Who did we lose? Okay, so a list is nothing but a list of subscribers. Okay, so if I come into Marketing Cloud, can you hear me okay now? Is it breaking?
Yes. No, it's fine.
Shiv, Asia? Okay, all right. Okay, cool. So when I come into Email Studio, so from the dashboard, you will come and click on email. Okay, and then you'll come into Email Studio. So this is the Email Studio interface. You will see overview, content, subscribers, interactions, all this here. So most of the data storage you will see under subscribers. So when I click on subscribers on the left panel, you will see the lists, all subscribers. Then you will see data extensions and a few other things that we'll actually look through during this couple of days. List is nothing but a structure where you store subscriber information. Okay, so if I go into a particular list, it will actually have, let me show you this. It will have the subscriber key. Okay, it will have the email address of that particular subscriber. It will have the subscriber status. Okay, and then there's something called attributes. Okay, so you're very familiar with data tables, SQL tables or data tables that you have seen. So you have fields, or even in custom objects that you have in Salesforce. So you actually create custom fields, right? So here, the default, for you need to have a subscriber key and email address, which is what is identifying that subscriber, and then how you actually can email them out. A status that will automatically be defined when you the person name, and then
Shibu, you're breaking.
custom attributes that you can actually define. Okay, that is called profile attribute function, and these profile attributes. How about now? Better now?
Better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So profile attributes is primarily fields that you will actually be storing about that particular subscriber's profile information, a
So,
demographic
Shibu,
information.
can you come again for subscriber status? Actually, we lost there.
Okay. Subscriber status is about that particular subscriber. Okay, what is the status? I have a separate slide on that after this. So it'll actually show you what are the various status that you will actually have for a subscriber. There is active, bounced, held, unsubscribed, etc. Right? So I'll go to the details shortly. And then you have profile attributes, values that you can, or fields that you can actually create, and then you can actually store values for them. Okay. So if I go into a particular list here, and if I try to create a subscriber, okay, let me go into here, and then to create a subscriber. So it will bring up a subscriber wizard, okay, through the UI. And then once I come in, so this is what the UI looks like when you want to try to create a subscriber. It will ask you for a subscriber key, okay, and then you have to provide a email address, and then you have to show you a list of profile attributes and preference attributes which have been defined in the system, which you have to enter. So it's same as imagine there is an object where you have certain fields that you need to fill out, and it's that you have to go and add. Now these profile attributes and preference attributes are customizable. You can go and actually define that upfront, for every subscriber. What are the demographic information and preference information that you want to store for every subscriber that you are going to store in emails here. Okay, subscriber key and email address are always required. So so you always need to have these two values. These are optional values unless you have actually specified them as required. Okay? So where do you actually see this profile attributes? So if I go to on the left side here under subscribers, and let me just bring this up. Okay, so when I come to profile management, slightly slow. Okay, so you'll see here the list of all the different fields that you can actually create, the attribute you can create. So email address is a system default, which will always be there for subscribers. First name, last name, gender, and I've actually created an additional field that I'm actually storing for some internal calculations. But then if I want to add a phone field, I can go ahead and add that. So this right now I'm not able to add this from this particular business unit because this is a child business unit. Okay, the profile and preference management is actually done on the parent business unit. Okay, so you will be able to see that from a parent business unit only. So here it will not allow you to go ahead and add or additional profile information over here. Okay. Now these profile information, it's primarily if I go in, it will actually allow you to create a text, a date field, or a numeric type of data type. Only these three types it will actually allow you to do it. But in preference, it will actually allow you to create any Boolean fields. So let's say I have a preference, I want to receive any HTML communication, or if I want to receive or I want to opt into email, I want to write that. So I can have different types of Boolean fields that I want to use. I can add that in. Okay. So these are things that you can actually configure, but this is actually configured on the enterprise unit level, on the top parent level. On the business unit level, you can only use whatever has been configured there. Okay. So now if we go back to, there's something called all subscribers list that you need to know. So this is something where it will store all the list of the subscribers that you have in your organization. Okay, so it is maintained at the level, and if you have permissions to see all the subscribers at the business unit level, you will be able to see that as well. So you can see all the various subscribers that we have and what is the various statuses, etc. Okay. Subscriber key we talked about, which is a unique key. Like I mentioned earlier, you need to be able to identify a subscriber using the subscriber key. Now status, the moment you add a particular subscriber or you create a subscriber, automatically they will be given a default status of active. Okay, and depending on how when you use them for email sends, the status will get updated. For example, let's say you send out an email to a subscriber, and that was active. And if it actually got bounced, the email got bounced, and then that the ISP actually gave you that message back to the Marketing Cloud instance, then this status will get updated. Okay, so it will actually show that your particular subscriber, the email was bounced because of certain reason, right? So then you need to actually go and check what was the reason why it bounced. And for bounce, there's actually different types of bounces. There's something called soft bounce and there's something called hard bounce. Okay, so you need to go through this scenario of okay, it's very important to understand something that is a temporary phenomenon that is that probably could have been a network error, or it could have been maybe the mailbox was full and it cannot be delivered at right now. So for soft bounces, sometimes there will be a retry happening. They will actually do it in 72 hours. There will be retries happening multiple times. If after 72 hours it is not happening, then automatically it will be termed as a bounce and it will update the system back. Okay. Now, if it is bouncing multiple times, so let's say you sent out an email as part of a campaign today to a subscriber, it bounced back. Okay, it got updated after 72 hours. It got updated as a bounce. Then after a few days, you're again going to send another email to the same subscriber. Okay, so you want to review your subscribers who are actually reporting as bounced to, maybe it might be a temporary thing, might get resolved, so you might want to that out. So let's say a particular domain is having some issue, and you've actually have a lot of subscribers. You want to test it out for that specific one domain first, maybe with 1 or 2 or 3 subscribers first, and see if it's still working, if it's a network issue or something, rather than sending it out to hundreds of people on that particular domain, right? So at least that will actually not damage your reputation. So it's kind of we will cover that during our deliverability session. It's very important that when you send out emails to your subscribers, try to keep the delivery rate very high. I mean, the number of bounces that happen should be very low. Otherwise, when ISPs look at it, they will actually flag you for actually being too many emails that are actually bouncing. So quite important that you actually look at your bounce management. So there are rules that are actually built into Marketing Cloud to see okay, to update the status, that if it is bounced multiple times. Let's say it's actually from the 3rd time onwards, if it is bounced, and if it is the first time it bounced was 15 days, then you actually mark it as undeliverable. Or if it is from a trusted subscriber, ISP, sorry, a trusted ISP like Gmail or Hotmail, if you have sent to them and they said, okay, it's a hard bounce, this domain does not exist, or you are not able to deliver to this person, then automatically again it will be marked as undeliverable. Once it's marked as undeliverable, then we will not be sending an email anymore to that particular person till you actually rectify it. You have to go have somebody who's actually undeliverable or bounced, and if you think that person is not going to be getting an email, mark them as unsubscribed, or you can move it out to a suppression list and use it later to suppress any sense to that particular person. Okay. Unsubscribe, like I mentioned, is if a particular subscriber receives an email, okay, and there is actually options within that email for them to unsubscribe, or they can go to a profile center or a subscription center, which I will show you in a future slide as well, either today or tomorrow, where they can actually go and specify I don't want to receive any more communications from Marketing Cloud from your either type of email or any communications from your account or from your org, right? So they can, once they do that, then your particular status gets updated as unsubscribed. And then delete is it will not show as deleted as a status as such, but then it will actually, you can delete people from the list that you have. So automatically they will not be appearing on that list anymore. Okay. So let me show you here so this all subscribers list is the master list that you have in Marketing Cloud. It contains all the different subscribers that you have ever sent emails out. Unless and until you go and delete it, they will always remain there. Okay, and then you can actually create custom list. I can create a small sub list. All subscribers list is not something that you can go it and delete. It's always going to be there. It's a master list that is maintained by Marketing Cloud. But if you want to create your own specific sub list, to post a small set of subs that you want to link to, you can go ahead and create it. And you can create my list. You can have your own folder structure, and then say I want to create a specific list for that. Are you still able to hear me okay?
It's breaking in between actually.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Okay, so are you able to see the list, the training folder now?
Yeah.
Okay, just refreshed again. Sorry. Not a good time for internet. Okay, so while that loads, like let me see if I can cover the rest of the topics that we have. So list primarily, like you can add subscribers, like I showed earlier, like you can actually go ahead and specify the subscriber key, the email address, and the attributes that you have. So one thing you need to know about a list is the data structure for a list is always the same across. So if I create different lists, like list A, list B, list C, every list has the same data structure, okay, and that will always be, it will have the subscriber key.
Guys, I think we lost. She would just wait for a few seconds.
Okay, back. Sorry, internet seems to be very bad today. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so can you see the screen now?
Yes.
The slide. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was saying earlier, was the list. Every list has the same structure, data structure. The subscriber key, email address, the profile attributes, and preference attributes. It will not change. So if I create two lists, the structure will always be the same. It's always to be about a particular subscriber. Okay, now
It's again breaking.
hello.
Yeah. Actually, it's breaking
Okay.
in between. Now it's fine.
Okay. So if I go to I want to create a particular subscriber, a particular list, I can actually create a list, and then I can import subscribers. I can add it manually through the UI. But what you will notice is like every list has the same data structure. Okay, you cannot have it customized. Like one list, if you have a certain subscriber data, you cannot go to another list and say, okay, I want to store different type of information here. So that is very important for you to understand. Every list, the information about a subscriber. So if you want to bring in data that is not a subscriber information, let's say you want to bring in some order details, or you have any product information that you want to bring in that is related to some order that you had for a customer, and you want to use that in your email marketing, right? So those you cannot actually bring into a particular list unless and until you create the fields for that in your profile or preference management, right? And that is like too many, you cannot keep on changing just for one particular list. If you go and add that in your profile, it will show up in every list that you create. So it's not a good use of how to use list. Okay, so list, you have to keep it very simple. The profile just have enough information about that particular subscriber, preferences as well, what is the preference about that you wish to track across all the subscribers that you have. So that is where data extensions come in. So we will look at data extensions later. That actually will help you be able to store any additional data that you want, non-information if you want to bring in, if you want a relational data that you want to bring in, complex things that you want to import it from external systems. So data extensions are very powerful from that perspective. Okay. So if I go and I want to create a list, I just try to create a sample list here, if it will let me. Okay. Okay, you can actually mark it as either public or you can leave it like non-public. So if you mark it as public, what happens is it will be available on the subscription center. So when customers actually come and when they look at their subscription center on the emails that you send to them, they can see this list available, and if they want, they can go and check on it and they can be subscribed to that. Okay, but if it's something that you don't want them to be subscribed to, that it is not something that you want to be visible outside, you will leave that as unchecked. And then you can send welcome email, so whenever a subscriber is added to this particular list, if you check this, automatically they will be sent an email, right? But if you don't want to do into that particular list and then maintain that. Okay. So I just created a sample list here called sample list 2. I had already had 2 other lists available here. So we'll see how we can actually import data into that particular list if you have a set of subscribers. Okay. So I've actually created some sample subscribers here. You can see, I have subscriber key, first name, last name, some data here. So probably it's in a CSV format. And let's try if we can actually import that data into sample list 2. So whenever you can be actually going and creating one by one, you, most of the time when you want to add data into your list, you would either you go to all subscribers and you can copy from there, okay, or you can actually go to the specific list and then you can import data using a file. Most of the times you actually import it using files. So preferably using a CSV file. Once it comes up, you can go into the list and then there's an option to import. So, it's taking too long to load. Okay, I wanted to actually show the targeted list and exclusion list as well. So both are actually using the demo. So unless the site comes up, it's very difficult. Okay, so while that loads, let me show you something here. If I have a particular subscriber, so remember I just showed you a list of subscribers that I'm planning to import, right? So let's say this is a subscriber key. If I want to search if this subscriber is already existing, I can actually use this search option here, in the all subscribers list. I can actually come paste it here and then say find now. So this is useful if you want to go and find if there is an existing subscriber that is already there, what is the status of that particular person, etc. Okay. Not coming up. Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you, but your screen got stuck. Actually.
Okay. Is it sharing now?
Yeah, it's sharing. No.
Okay. So now it's getting faster. Try to change the data connection. Okay. Okay. Hopefully it's better now. So like I mentioned earlier, if I go to all subscribers and if I want to search a particular subscriber, okay, I can click on search. Okay, and I can choose different attributes on how to search that particular person. So if I use subscriber key, I paste that particular subscriber that we are trying to import. I want to know if that particular subscriber is already existing. Okay. So it will say 0 subscribers found. So this is a new subscriber. And then once we import, we'll come back and check if that particular subscriber got updated. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are actually we created a small sub list called sample list here. And we are going to import that particular CSV. Okay. And we are not importing it to the all subscribers list. Keep that in mind. That is the master list, right? So we are importing it to the sample list too that we created. What will happen is whenever you actually import any subscriber or add or update any subscriber that you have into a smaller list, it will always get added or updated back to the master list. Okay. So in our case, we saw that this particular subscriber does not exist in the all subscribers, but when we add it to this sample list too, you will see this particular subscriber now reflecting in the all subscribers list. Okay. So let me go ahead and upload that particular file. Uh, So this is when you actually open the import, you will actually be able to choose a file either from your computer or from FTP. So every marketing cloud has a business unit. You will have an FTP account, and it'll be set up so. When we do automation and journeys, probably especially automation, I will walk you through the FTP part, and there is a configuration for that you can do. But if you have the file on your laptop or your desktop, you can actually use that for importing as well. The format you have to specify. Most of the time we use CSV, but you can also use tab or any other delimitation if you need like pipe or something. If you want to have that in your file, you can use that. There are three options on how to update your list. Okay, so you're familiar with upsert, insert, and update it. So add and update. Okay, add if there is a new subscriber, it will add, and if it is existing, it will update them. Sometimes you want to add but do not update. Then you want to say or update but do not add. So these three options are available for whenever you import subscribers into your list. Okay, once you do it, then it will have to map. So now in this particular file, you will notice that these are the different file header names that I have. Gender is the only one that actually matched, and because of that, it auto mapped. Okay, but then you will see now I have subscriber key, email ID. It did not automatically map because there is actually a space here. So the two required fields for your subscriber list is these two: subscriber key and email address. Because of that, it will not allow me to go forward unless I map it, right? So I'll have to click these two, map the subscriber key. I have to map the email address. The moment I do that, the next is enable, which means the others are optional. If you want, you can map them in if you want to bring the data in, or you can actually go forward from here. So I'll go ahead, map the rest. Email update. Once you have mapped it, you can click next. It will show you okay, these are the columns that you have mapped. You have 19 records that you're trying to import, and you can actually even specify your email address to notify you once the import completes. Okay. So this should be fairly quick, hopefully. So once you do the import, you can go back and then verify initially the count of subscribers that were in this list was 0. So now if I go in, it says imported successfully. So once it refreshes, you will see here sample list 2 has 19 subscribers. Okay, so if I go into here and click on the subscribers, it will show me all the people that we actually imported. Okay, for the demo purposes, I use my email address for everything. But then ideally, you would have different subscribers with different email address. You will notice that the subscriber key is unique for every subscriber that we imported in. Okay, and then there is an import method. So if you added it in through the UI, it will actually show as in application. If you added it through import, it will show as import. And then if you did it through API, it will show API. So there's different ways that you can actually bring subscribers in. Now, if you go back to the all subscribers, remember we actually did it to the sublist sample 2, right? Now, if you go back to all subscribers, and if I try to search for this subscriber now, it should show up over there. So Okay, so it says one subscriber found. And if I double click on that, it will show me the properties of that particular subscriber. Okay, it will show you the first name, everything that we imported as part of it. And then also, if you go to the list, it will say it belongs to the sample list too as well, besides the all subscribers. Okay? So you can actually see the history of that particular, the attributes, all the information about that particular subscriber from here. Okay. Okay. Any questions on the subscriber? How do you create a list? How do you import data into the subscriber list and look for subscriber information, the attributes that we covered?
I have one question, Shibu.
Yes, go ahead.
So let's say I have one BU and I have two BUs, and there are subscribers which is available in BU one, and I want those subscribers to available in BU two as well. So how actually I'm going to do that?
Okay, so depending on how your setup is done, it's actually subscribers are actually maintained from the enterprise level. And when you create the BUs, you will be able to specify if you want to have everything shared across the BUs or you want to have subscriber filters. Okay, so so any sub list that you create, you will be maintaining, like whatever list I now created in this BU is maintained in this BU level. Okay, it is not maintained in the other business units that I have. Okay, but the all subscribers list is something that is shared across. And then if I want to apply a filter, okay, let's say I have a geographical reason to show okay, subscribers for a particular region for that BU, then I can apply the filters on that particular using a Boolean value. I can apply the filters on that and then specify that for that BU. So then I can see the subscribers for that. But if your question is if I created subscribers here and I want to share that list with another one, that's not possible. Okay. The only way is for you to be able to, it will get reflected in the all subscribers, and then from there they'll be able to see it if it is open to them.
I have created one subscribers in particular list, right? Let's say, and that subscriber is also available in all subscriber list, right?
Yes.
So will that in that other way that will be available in another BU as well, if it
Yes,
is
it will
shared?
be. If it is shared, I mean, if the all subscribers is made available, fully available to all the business units, they will be able to see it. So if there is no filter restriction, then they should be able to see it.
Okay.
For instance, this all subscribers that I see here, these were all created in the parent business unit. Okay, so this one's I did not create it from this unit, but if I go to the ones that I created here, those also will be added to this. Now, if I go to the any other business unit, I should be able to see the ones that I added from here as well because I have not applied any filter there.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Now, one thing I have to show you guys is if I go to email studio for sending. So now we've created the different list. We've also shown how to use the all subscribers, the sub list, and then how to create or import subscribers into a list, right? So end of the day, what are we planning to do? We are actually planning to use that for sending emails out to them, right? So when you go to email, you will actually go to content builder. So this is where you actually create emails and then you can actually send emails out. So I've actually created few emails here, and then I've actually set okay, this particular sample email. So if I want to send emails out, if I click here send, I need to be able to select who I need to send to. Okay, so when I get to the email configuration of that particular send, you can see there's something called select audience. Here is where I specify okay, what is the data or the recipients that I need to select for this particular one. And under training, we created these lists. So I can specify, okay, now I want to send emails to this subscribers in sample list one. So to do that, you can actually add them to targeted. Okay, so any list that you want to actually send out to, you can actually use them here, and then you can add them to your targeted list, and they will be the recipients of your email. Now there is something called exclusion as well. Okay, so exclusion is let's say you want to exclude a set of subscribers from not receiving your email. Okay, so that is over here as well. So you can add a sample list 2 here as an exclusion list. Now keep in mind when you create list. Okay. So when you create a list, you do not term it as a targeted list or an exclusion list. That you don't actually call it that way or categorize it that way. It's just a subscriber list. Okay, you either mark it as a target, you will actually use it as a targeted or an exclusion list depending upon the context that you're sending. For example, let's say you actually sent a communication out to sample list one. Okay, so let's say you had to send out a newsletter to sample list one. Now you're actually planning to send it to sample list two as well. But what if you have some people in sample list one who are also in sample list two? You're not sure. In this particular case, you just have 20 or 19. But when you're in your original case scenarios, you might have large number, like you have like 10,000, 20,000, or maybe 50,000 in one list, and maybe another 50,000 in another list, right? It's not easy to go and do a comparison and see manually okay, who are the people in each list. So if you want to make sure that you don't want to repeat emails to send when you are sending it out to that second list, you can use that as an exclusion. For example, let's say I sent the email in the morning to sample list one already. Okay, now I'm planning to send the email to sample list two. Okay. So I will add sample list two as targeted, but in order to make sure I don't send this email now to anybody who's already sent in the morning to in sample list one, I will add that to the exclusion list. So if there is anybody in sample list two who's already in sample list one, they will not receive that email. So you can be ensured that it will not duplicate the email again for them. Okay, so that is how you will actually use exclusion list. Okay? So if you come across that term targeted and exclusion, this is what it means. But by default, it doesn't mean that sample list one is always an exclusion list. No, I can even use sample one at any point in time as a targeted list. That is why I'm saying it is depending upon your context and how you plan to use a list for sending. Okay. Any questions on?
Yeah, Shivu.
Yeah.
So let's say in sample list one, I have 20 records, right? And I want to send only 10 people in that. I don't want, and I don't have any sample list two, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to send only 10 people mails, and rest 10 people I don't want to send them. How actually I'm going to do that?
So you will have to do something called segmentation, which we will cover later in either today or tomorrow. So there is something called how you can actually bring subset of this one again. So you when you are sending to a list, it's just everybody in that list. You cannot go and say I want to send only to 5 people in that and select it over here. You cannot do that. Okay. So if you go to this particular sample list too, if I have this list to here, if I say I want to create or a subset of this one with just 10 people, then I can actually filter that out. So that is part of segmentation. There is something called filtered list, which is actually called group. Okay, or I can create a random group as well. So anything that you actually segment is nothing but creating a subset of an existing list or data extension that you have. So if I create a subset of that one, then you will be calling it as a group. You can either do it using filter criteria, or you can use it through random, which I will show you through demo later. I think either tomorrow when you have time, I'll go through that one as well. Okay. Yeah, but to your question, you cannot segregate it directly here. So if you can only use a list as is to send it out. You cannot during send time. You cannot say okay, send it only to half the people in that particular list. You cannot do that way. It's all or nothing for that particular list. Okay. And you can send it to multiple lists. If I want but if I want to sample list two, if I want to send it to the NTO one, I can do all three. Okay, so that is also possible. Okay, so let me go back to our slides here. Let me see if I missed out anything else.
So one question is there in the chat.
Yep.
So where are all subscribers' contact being saved?
Sorry, I mean unsubscribers, sorry. All the people that unsubscribed, where are they being saved?
So it will be saved here as well. Let me go back to the subscribers. Okay, so when you go to depending on the unsubscribe, so I have a separate section on unsubscribes, but let me help answer that. So you will see here on all subscribers, you will see the status, right? So there are some people who have been unsubscribed. So depending upon the list that they unsubscribe from, that list will have the status of that person as unsubscribed. So if somebody comes and says I don't want to receive any communication from you, unsubscribe all, Okay, so which means it's like a must. It's a must unsubscribe, meaning I don't want to get any communication from this particular org. They will be shown as unsubscribed on the all subscribers list. But let's say I'm actually now, like I showed you earlier, I'm actually sending out this particular email to these subscribers here right now, because I imported them all by default is active, right? If somebody replies back to that email and they actually say they want to unsubscribe from that email list, then in this particular list their status will be updated as unsubscribed. However, they do have the choice to unsubscribe all from that email as well. Okay, so when somebody gets an email, let me see that email. Sorry, go back to this email. So at the bottom of here, you will see there is multiple options here. So if you click this unsubscribe, it's a one-click unsubscribe to tell I want to unsubscribe just from this particular email list that that was sent, right? But if I go to the subscription center or my profile center, or even after I do that one-click unsubscribe, there will be an option for me to unsubscribe all, which means I don't want to receive any more communications from you in future, right? In that particular case, it will get updated to your all subscribers list as well. Okay, otherwise what will happen is you will be unsubscribed on this particular list only, but in all subscribers you will be still shown as active, which means you can still send out communication to that person through other lists, okay, or other forms of data extensions or any other list that you have, but not through this particular list. So in future, if that person is unsubscribed on sample list 2 and you try to send him any form of email communication, he will not get that email. Okay, but if that person is in sample list 1 as active and you use an email communication there, he will get the email. Okay, does that help answer, Maria?
Yeah, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so we looked at creating a subscriber in all subscribers, creating list, importing, and we saw target exclusion list.
There is another question, Shibu.
Sure. See in the
Can we
chat.
change status manually for held to active or unsubscribed to active?
Yes, you can. Sorry, yeah, I should have shown that as well. Okay, so let's say I came here. So I have sample list 1. I think I've actually created some dummy values like that. Okay, so here, let's say I want to this person was unsubscribed. Okay, if I go here and I want to manually activate that person, I can go and activate him here. Okay, so if I do that, if I click on activate, the value will change to active here. Okay, which means next time if I want to unsubscribe him, I can unsubscribe. One thing you need to be careful about, so let me refresh this so you can see that. To sample list 1, and you can do it on the all subscribers list also. So any list you can do that. So you will see that that person actually got active. There's now only 2 unsubscribed. One thing you need to be careful is any user that has been unsubscribed. Let's say you try to import the data of this particular user again with an active status, they will not get activated as active. Okay, that is because we don't want you to accidentally go and change somebody who's been unsubscribed to active, because it'll next time you're trying to send an email to them, and if that somebody has actually been sending the data to you, you don't want that to be changed. So you need to either go and manually do it or programmatically go and change that to active. So I tried that today as well. So if I try to import the data again with these users, if it is already unsubscribed, it will not change it to active. Okay, and we keep it unsubscribed for a reason. It's because we don't want emails to be sent out to that person if they have already unsubscribed. And that is one of the practices as well that you need to understand. In your all subscribers list, you're tracking everybody who's unsubscribed. Don't go and delete data from here, who are people who are unsubscribed. Or if you're doing so, you need to make sure you add them to a suppression list, and you always add that. Otherwise, what will happen is you will have no way of knowing somebody is unsubscribed, and in future you might end up sending a mail to them if they get re-added through some data import. Okay, so very important to make sure you keep track of it's from a legal compliance perspective. If somebody is unsubscribed to your email communications, then you should not be sending an email to them. They can raise a spam complaint, they can complain against you, and then you get defaulted by the ISPs. Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. let me see if I can start on data extensions as well. So we looked at what list is, right? So list is, like I said, it's everything is about a particular subscriber. Like, you cannot have your own custom fields or custom attributes that you want to have, and like non-subscriber information, you cannot bring that in. So that is why, like, there is something called data extensions. It's nothing but similar to your SQL tables. So data extension by default will be empty. You have to go and, like, specify what fields you want to have on there. Okay, and then along with that, you can specify, okay, what are the data relationships that you can have. So like, let's say you have like two different data extensions. How are they related? Okay, so that is something you can specify. And then there's also something called send relationship, which I will explain, like, as we get more detailed into data extension, how it actually relates to the subscriber list that we have. Okay. So this is typically how, like, when you actually go and try to configure a data extension, how it actually looks like. You'll be able to, like, specify the fields, the data types, etc. Like, it's very similar to, like, how you actually, like, configure your custom fields, like, when you have a custom object. Like, so if I go to data extension, if I want to, like, create a data extension here. Okay, place is fast. So if I go and create, it will show me options over here. Like, so there are different ways that you can create data extensions. One is the standard, then there is filtered and random. So we will mostly look at standard data extensions for now. Filtered and random, I'll come back later when I explain segmentation. Okay. So when you bring up that you want to create a standard data extension, like, there are different ways that you can again create it from here. The default one is you are going to create it from scratch. That's create from new. Okay. Then there is something called create from existing. So let's say you have already, like, some data extensions that you have, and you just want to mirror the same data structure. For instance, if I have a customer data extension that I want to, like, mirror, I can go and select that and then create from that. So it will save me some time and effort from, manually going and creating fields for that. Okay. The third option is create from template. Now there are predefined templates that have been given by Marketing Cloud that you can use. For example, there's something called sendlog. There is something called triggered data extension, send data extension as well. So these are some things that you will actually learn in advanced classes, like, where do you use a sendlog, or where do you use a triggered send data extension. For example, if I use this triggered send data extension template, every template has a default set of fields that has already been configured by Salesforce. Marketing Cloud. Like, for instance, here, if you look at it, you will see subscriber key and email address are already added in as default. You cannot go and change it. Okay, so that is quite different. Like, if it was a regular standard data extension, there will be nothing here. You can actually start configuring any fields that you want over here. Any additional fields that you want on a template, you can add, but the base like fields that is required by the template will already be pre-populated there. Okay, so if let's say I take a different template, let's say I take a sendlog template. So you will see a different set of fields that is actually mandated. So if I come here, so now you will see a different set of fields that are mandated. I can still go ahead and add additional fields that I want to track, but these ones are pre-required by Marketing Cloud whenever you have a sendlog data extension. Okay. So we'll just look at, like, if I want to create a new data extension. So if I say a sample DE, okay, then there is actually an option for sendable and is testable. So remember, I was saying, like, you can actually store non-subscriber information in a data extension. Okay, so in the difference between a list is, like, this list is like everything that you store is about a subscriber. So you can always send an email to a list. Okay, but data extension, it may or may not have a subscriber information. Like, so unless and until, like, how do you know, like, okay, this is having a subscriber information and you will be able to send an email to it. So if you want to, like, specify that, you have to click on this is sendable option. The moment you click is sendable, Marketing Cloud knows that you are going to be using this for email sends, and it will have a subscriber information in there. Okay. Is testable is an additional option when you actually choose a sendable. This is only when you want to, like, choose this for testing options. So let's say, like, when you created email internally, and then you want to, like, test before you send it out, like, and you have, like, internal folks that you want to, like, send it out to. You can use like, people, like, that you want to load from your team into that for testing purposes. Like, it's a smaller set of people that you want to, like, send it out to. So you'll not be actually using a testable data extension for, like, for sending out production emails, like, to send it out to the mass you will not use as testable data. It's only the sendable ones that you'll be using. Okay. So once I specify either a sendable or a non-sendable, then the next thing that you will actually come across is a data retention policy. Now this is very important. So one thing I have to mention about data in Marketing Cloud. Marketing Cloud is not meant for storing a data storage tool. It's not a data warehouse. Primarily, just because it has data storage available, in terms of the list and data extension, you should not be bringing in everything, all data that you want to, bring in from external systems into Marketing Cloud. Only bring in the relevant data that you need for marketing purposes. For instance, like customer information, in contact, and leads in Salesforce or in CRM, you have a lot of fields that you might have on a contact object or a lead object. You may not need all of that for your marketing purposes. Just bring in only the fields that you require for marketing, right? Similarly, if you are importing data from your e-commerce site or from other systems, external systems, bring in the relevant data. Plus, let's say you have data that that you will not need after a particular campaign. Let's say I'm running a campaign for the month of May. Okay, so I'm bringing in some specific customers that actually that I want to send out emails to for the May campaign. After the May campaign, if I'm not going to be using any of that information, then I don't need to retain it and keep it in Marketing Cloud for that. I can either delete it or I archive it to an external system, right? So where do you actually mention all that? Okay, so that would actually be in your retention policy. So if you want to delete if you want to delete and remove records from your data extension after a particular period of time, you can specify that in data retention policy. And this is a recommended best practice. Whenever you create a data extension, always go and set a data retention policy. Now there are different ways that you can actually do it. Okay, so you can do it at an individual record level, or you can do it at an all records level. So if it's an individual record level, what it means is for every record that you have after a particular time period, it will automatically get deleted from your data extension. So you can actually specify days, weeks, months, years. So if I don't want specific data to be kept inside this particular data extension after 4 weeks, every record it will check every record every night. It will go and see has this particular record past 4 weeks. If it's past 4 weeks, then automatically it will get removed. Okay, any data that is newer and that is less than that 4 weeks will get retained. Okay. So if you do all records, then you have some additional options available. Okay, so let's say I have data that I've actually imported it and I don't want to use it after every 1 week if I don't want to store the data unless and until new data comes in. So if that's the case, if I do a reset period on import, what happens is during this 1 week, let's say some new data has been imported, then again the counter will reset. So from that day that the data got imported, it will actually wait on it, and then it will again start counting that 1 week. So let's say the 1 week has passed, no new data has come in, then that data gets deleted. So make sure you understand your use case properly, and then you set your data retention accordingly. Okay, and if I want to delete all the records on a specific date, let's say like I was saying earlier, for the month of May, if I'm using it, and then probably around the first week of June, if I don't want the data, I can go ahead and delete it out. I can do that as well. Now, in the all records, there's actually two options. You can either clear all the records, or you can actually choose all records and the data extension. So what will happen is even the data structure will get deleted. Okay, so which means if you're having a data extension and you're saying I want to reuse it for multiple campaigns every month, but I don't want to store the data, but keep only the data structure, then I will use all records. But if you're saying okay, this is just a temporary data extension that I want to use just for a small time period, I don't want to use that structure anymore. After that, you can go and use the all records and data extensions option here. Okay. Then once you do that, you can actually go and then start specifying the fields. Okay, so you can actually, let's say if you want to store customer information, you can actually mention the different fields that you want to track. And let's say first name, then last name, etc. Okay, so one thing that you need to understand here is there's something called primary key. It is recommended that if wherever possible you try to have a primary key for your data extension, then because you can uniquely identify it, it actually helps you from a performance perspective. Will actually help you quite a lot when you want to search and get data. During import, it will actually the primary key is also used. So we'll look at that when I do the import scenario tomorrow. But then just keep in mind that you can have multiple primary keys. So for sometimes in a particular case, when let's say you have a table with a customer ID and an order ID, and you want to have a composite key for that, you can actually choose both. Okay, that's both are possible. Right? But if most of the cases, if you have a single primary key, you can use that as a single option as well. Email ID, especially because this is a sendable data extension, you must have an email address, and that is a separate data type here. So sometimes people forget, I came across this scenario once where I actually created a sendable data extension. I wrote the name email ID here, and I chose the option as text, and I marked it as sendable, and then it did not give me any error. And I was trying to send an email to it, and then I was seeing no email is getting sent out. I'm not receiving any emails. Later, when I went back and checked, I found that because there was no email address here, field here, it did not know which email ID field to use for sending it out. So this is very important that you need to have an email address field in a sendable data extension. That is the default email that will use for the sending. The other thing that you need to know is let's say I have two emails that I want to track for a particular customer that I have here. Okay, if you try to use two email addresses, Marketing Cloud will give you a warning. Okay, this is because Marketing Cloud cannot be specified to tell okay, which email address to use. It will go, you cannot predict which email ID it will use for sending it out. So for a particular subscriber, if it uses this email ID, it might use another one for the second subscriber, right? So it will give you unpredictable behavior. So in the case where you have more than one email IDs that you want to store, always prioritize and use one of them as the email address. The other one, if you want, you can store it as a text email. Okay, and the one that you specify, that is the one that will actually get used for the email sends. That will be one that goes out. Okay, let me see. So you can use other field options like number, date, boolean, like phone, decimal, and locale as well, and you can specify the characters here. Always make sure you specify the proper length. Don't go and simply give very high length. You can go up to 4,000 characters, but try not to use too many characters. Keep it short for performance reasons. And then if you think a particular field is not required, you can actually go and create make them as nullable as well, so that it is not always required. Okay, now sometimes let's say you have data coming in for first name, you might expect null values for that. And if you're using first name in your email for personalization, right? So it looks odd when you try to say hello first name, when you actually replace that with the first name, and if you get a record that actually is empty, so if I have a name over there hello Brian, hello Mark, it will actually show you the name. But what if there is a record that actually has an empty first name? Yeah, and then if you have set it programmatically to show hello first name, it will show hello blank space in that email. So that looks very odd. So if you want to overcome that scenario, one practice probably would be if you want to give a default value as customer here, then if there is any record that you have first name as blank, then it will automatically default to customer. So then in your email, when you use the first name field, it will show hello customer for the people who have the first name as blank. Okay, so that's one way to look at it as well. So you can use default values. If you have a date field that you want to default to the current date, you can select that also as well. Okay. Now the most important part here for a send relationship, like I mentioned earlier. So because I mentioned this as a sendable data extension, I need to be able to mention okay, this is there is a subscriber in here, right? Otherwise, how will the system know that that you are trying to send to a subscriber? So how do you identify a subscriber in Marketing Cloud? It is through the subscriber key, right? So you have a subscriber key for which you have actually mentioned in your all subscribers as well. So you have to specify from here which field in here is actually referring to the subscriber key. So in here, if you think the customer ID is the main identifier for a subscriber, then you have to come and select that over here. Okay, or if it's some other field that you think is the subscriber key that will be mapping to the subscriber table, then you have to specify that and says customer ID is the one that relates to the subscriber key. So that is the one that will actually get mapped back along with the email address. Okay, during when you are sending an email back to the subscriber table. Okay, so that I will actually show you tomorrow. I know we are almost at the top of the hour, so I'll actually show you tomorrow more details about when you get into data extension and when you're trying to send emails to data extension, how does that work and how does it get mapped back to the all subscribers? So behind the scenes, what happens? Okay. Any questions here? I'll stop here for today. There's still more that we need to cover as part of data extensions, but I just want to get any last minute questions. Okay, I have one here. When we choose individual records, then what will happen? Asim, can you help explain what that means?
When we choose the all record, then it automatically get deleted on a specific date and time. But when we click on the individual records, then we have to specify a record by ourselves, or what will happen, how it will be removed.
Correct. Okay, good question. So individual records, like I said, when you're actually entering that record into the data extension, right, when it's actually imported or you're adding it manually, it will have a timestamp of when it was created. So that is the time it will check. So if I say after 1 week, every night when the job runs to delete out there's a job that runs behind the scenes in Marketing Cloud, where it will go and check is there any data that we need to delete. It will check each record, and if you've specified individual record, it will check each record and see, does this record satisfy the condition that it has passed 1 week based on the creation date of that particular individual record. If it has passed, then it will delete that record.
Okay. So it will work just like a trigger. It will check the specific time stamp. Suppose we have created a record today, and we have the deletion date of 1 week, and we have created a record yesterday. Then it will remove after 1 week the yesterday record only. The today record will remain in the system.
Correct. Yeah. As long as the today's record has not passed the 7 days, it will not remove. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Samir, I will send that to you. So just ping me your email ID, separately. I will send that recording to you. Okay. Any other questions, team? I know we are top of the hour, so sorry for all the internet troubles that we had. Hopefully, it was better in the latter half of it. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? If not, we can actually continue with data extensions tomorrow. Okay, sounds good. And I'll wrap for today. Thank you all for joining. We'll talk again tomorrow, same time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So much. Bye bye. Good